So, straight into it. Dave Thompson is a freelance writer, researcher and facilitator from Belfast. He used to be a teacher, which was fun and also easier to explain. I know what you mean. He is husband to Lorraine, father to Erin and Callum, and walker of Mia, the world's laziest dog. Aww. He is a regular storyteller at 10 by 9 in Belfast and has self-published one novel, Yellow, a rom-com based on his experiences working as a steward at gigs. Hope you've brought copies. He is currently working on another novel. This is his first time reading at a flash fiction event, and his story is called The Last Conversation. Brace yourselves for this one.
So this is just on the theme. This isn't connected to anything, no part of any other piece of writing. The Last Conversation. Joanne stared at the government benches opposite. The debate had now entered its third hour and she was no longer attentive. The words had become a background drone. In the weeks before, she had listened, read, discussed, and been turned around on this issue multiple times. Last night she had made up her mind, but that was last night. Nearly 10 years had gone by since her election as an MP. So much energy had been invested in the House and in surgeries and travelling between the two, but no single issue had taken this much time and energy. Emotional energy. She hadn't seen it coming when she'd first been elected in 2024. No one had. Discussion about artificial intelligence had focused on students cheating in assignments, the development of customer service chatbots, the decreasing need for writers. Could AI put journalists out of business? What about screenwriters or novelists? The speaker called upon another speaker, but Joanne remained detached. Nobody had seen where any of it was going, which was strange because in retrospect it seemed so obvious. If a machine could utilise language structures, then it could also utilise dialect and colloquialism. Given enough information, it could not only become more human, it could become a human. And the first AI impersonators were fun. With access to your emails and social media accounts, they could think and write just like you. The second generation AI replicators, however, could literally sound like you if there was enough recorded speech on voice memos and videos. And it wasn't long until the third generation constructors could look like you on screen if there was enough images to animate. Joanne wasn't sure when the word continuator first crept into the language, when AI could effectively create a Zoom call with someone you had lost. A deceased spouse, a parent, a sibling, a friend. Grandparents were harder as they generally used social media less intensively, but as long as there was video and audio, there was always the possibility. The first quality continuators came with a price tag, but within several months they became affordable by most. No one understood why. No one was interested. Who was focusing on such a minor detail when that one last conversation had suddenly become possible? Of course, it was never just one last conversation. There were many conversations. All the unsaid words of the heart could now be expressed. Continuators provided release for the deepest, most hidden, intimate speech, the unbearable burden of what had never been said could now be lifted. But that was not all that was being lifted. Conversations that brought solace also provided the world's most revealing qualitative data to be harvested and analysed. Continuators reached far, far beyond the capacity of the best market researchers, producing data that could be sold off to the highest bidder and used to sell, well, almost anything. Humanity's deepest loves and fears, desires and longings were all there for the manipulating. There was outrage when the practice became known, though it didn't lessen the use of the programmes. Concerned pressure groups sprang up from across charities and communities and even some ethically inclined businesses. They asked the government to lead, to take responsibility, to act. And so the act about to be voted on would outlaw AI digital simulations of anyone deceased. Torn between the comfort offered and the manipulation taking place, and knowing how legislative bans had sometimes unintended consequences, Joanne had consulted her father. 6 months deceased, she had more than enough data for the continuator. A clinical psychologist in his lifetime, he was appalled by the ethical infringements and concerned about the avoidance of grief. He, or rather his continuation, did not favour the continued use of continuators. Joanne had decided in favour of the act. A free vote in the House. There would be no party whip. Her mind had been clear going to bed last night, but she'd woken up this morning with the realisation that should the legislation pass, in time, no future conversations with her father would be possible. And worse, could she really contribute to the mass bereavement of people losing their loved ones all over again? How could she be responsible for taking away that one last conversation?